Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Such a fun conversation with our guest, Annie Schuessler, today. Annie is a business coach who transitioned out of her career as a therapist to help other therapists grow their practices. Now, before you wonder what therapy practices have to do with health coaching, there is a lot of meat on the bone here for health, fitness, and nutrition coaches alike, because one of the topics we spent a good deal of time talking about is programming, and why coming up with a signature methodology that is predictable and repeatable is an exercise you'll definitely want to take on sooner rather than later. A program, an actual tangible thing with a price tag that you can sell, is necessary to have if you want a business that scales, period. But wait, there's more. We also talked about pricing, money mindset, and scarcity thinking. And we talked about a really great way to figure out what exactly your ideal client needs help with. Lots and lots and lots of good stuff here, coaches. Listen to this one twice. We love to see who's listening out there, so take a screen grab of your podcast player and tag us on Instagram at Health Coach Radio. Don't forget, you can find the show notes for this episode and all previous episodes at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. Here at Health Coach Radio, we're all about raising the voices of practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches and helping to drive this exploding industry forward. That's why we started the podcast, and that's why our school is board approved. Our show is proudly brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute, an approved educational provider with the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches, which means that our graduates can become eligible to sit for the NBHWC credentialing exam to become a board-certified health and wellness coach. You can learn all about our advanced coaching course at primalhealthcoach.com/level2. Let's get on with the show. Please welcome our guest, Annie Schuessler.
Annie, thank you so much for joining us today. Erin and I were just talking with you before we recorded about how excited we are to have this conversation because there are so many topics that I think coaches can take away from your expertise. So this is going to be a real treat. Do you mind sharing with us a little bit about your background story and kind of who you are and how you got here?
I would love to. And I'm so excited to be here. Okay. So I was a therapist in private practice, and I was chugging along and helping mostly couples, high conflict couples. And I kind of spent a fortune and a lot of time getting trained, getting licensed, building this private practice. And there were a lot of things I loved about it, but there was this moment when I realized, oh no, like, even though this is what I worked for, this is really what my wife and I both worked for and invested in, this isn't actually what I want. This isn't making me happy. I had this moment when I was at a informal college reunion with a few friends where we were all talking about our careers. And as I was listening to the three of them, really close friends, I'm listening to them and I'm just seeing that their faces light up as they talk about their work. Not that everything was perfect, but they looked just really engaged and excited about their work. And unfortunately, I had this feeling of that's not how I feel about my work right now. Like, I'm feeling more burnout and dread and just exhaustion about my work. And I was kind of like, I don't even want to acknowledge that because I'm the breadwinner. I've worked so hard for this. We've invested so much in me doing this. And I finally have what I thought I wanted. So when I went home from that reunion, I had a talk with my spouse, and I was really dreading that conversation of saying, I know we've built this. I know I bring in the money and I do this really important work, but I am headed for burnout and I can see it. And I'm so sorry to say, I'm hoping we can make a pivot and I can move in a different direction. And I really knew then what it was that I wanted to move into, which was business coaching. And it just kind of seemed like the weirdest thing for me to bring up. Like, I want to become a business coach, but it really aligned more with the way that I think, the way that I really love to help people, the way my mind works. And my spouse luckily got it right away and just said, absolutely. Like, we don't want you miserable. Money is important and great, but absolutely, we'll do whatever it takes for you to move in that direction. So that was a little over 10 years ago. And that was the beginning of me building my business coaching. And from there, I decided to focus on, and jump in anytime. I know I'm like making this a really long story.
Not at all.
But I knew I wanted to work with therapists because I knew therapists and I had already been helping therapists informally to build their practices. So that's where I started. And then from there, being kind of a rebellious person, I ended up helping therapists as well as other kinds of entrepreneurs to move beyond private practice. So folks who are doing some kind of really flexible one-on-one work where they kind of tailor everything to the person they're working with. I help those people to create programs that they can iterate over and over again and build and scale their businesses from there. So I just feel like I'm not saying it's always fun, but I do feel like I have the most fun job in the world. So I kind of owe it all to my spouse for having such a good reaction, because I probably would have turned back if they had said, no, thank you, Annie. Like, we already just built this thing.
I think that I think that's a really real concern to bring up. I'm certain that a lot of people hearing your origin story are feeling it. I was nodding emphatically because I remember that feeling of being completely disconnected from my previous career, and to your point, other people loving it and jumping out of bed to do it. And I didn't have that. And I remember bringing it to my spouse, and because these people love us, they can tell that the light is out of our eyes.
Yeah.
And for him, it was like, absolutely. And now my husband's going through a stage where he wants to change his career. And I'm like, 1,000,000%, let's go. And so I think that that's important. I think, acknowledgement to all of our spouses for being so open to that. And I guess my pep talk is anyone listening, like, your spouse, your partner, they love you, they care about you, they can tell that you're checked out. And so it doesn't hurt to ask.
Right.
That's such a good point. And it also makes me think, so sometimes with my clients, their spouses or their people have a less fantastic reaction. And I really encourage them, if that's happening, to just give them time, that they may just be scared and they may be feeling even protective of you. So if they're on that side of things where they're more maybe conservative and a little frightened, that I've still seen that turn around because of, I think, what you're saying, Erin, that they really love you. They want you to be happy.
I would even put in a plug to give your partner a little bit of credit here too, and involve them in the process and involving them in the plan to make the transition, that we're a team together. This isn't just me making a change and you're going to have to suck it up and go with it. It's, how can we do this together? And because both Erin and I can totally relate to this. We were both, again, fortunate to have spouses that were like, let's do it. I believe in you, and so all three of us here are lucky, but I talk to people all day through my role as an admissions director that are like, wow, I'm going to need to run this past my spouse. And a lot of it, they have questions, and that's okay. Of course they're skeptical. For some people, this is the first time you've mentioned it and they're like, what did, how much, and so they're going to have some questions, and all that's fine. Make this kind of a journey together. I mean, as someone who has you're a therapist. I mean, were you careful about how you approach that conversation with your wife, and what any advice there on someone who's got to kind of put their grown-up pants on here and have a tough conversation?
So I took the approach of crying in the fetal position. That was my way into the conversation. So, I mean, I definitely didn't have a strategic approach, but I think in that there was vulnerability. And so I think that actually does really help is that if this really goes to what you're saying, Laura, like involve them, bring them in, don't try to have everything figured out before bringing it up. And I think the fact that the vulnerability just came out, maybe in a messy way, but it came out, probably did help.
Yeah. Yeah. This is actually really, really great way to kick off this conversation because it's a real factor to this sort of I think most people who get into health coaching, and I'm probably generalizing, do it as a career pivot. It seems to be. So it's important to talk about this stuff. Now, speaking of career pivots, I'm really curious because so therapy, the practice wasn't lighting you up, that path wasn't lighting you up, and in your head, it was business coaching. That's the thing that I'm called to. I'm just totally dying to know, like, what is it about business coaching that speaks more to the kind of person that you are? So having gone through all this training, to your point, investing time and money into becoming, trained up as a therapist, what aspects of your character or experience was it for you that declared to you that business coaching was your path?
Yeah. I love getting stuff done. Like I love getting stuff done and I love helping other people get stuff done and being in action towards a goal. And that's, I think, why I found myself naturally working with my friends on their businesses behind the scenes. So there was some kind of matchup between my like INFJ Capricorn self and looking at especially micro businesses with people and looking at, okay, what is it that you're working on creating that's unique, and being able to help people see the match between their gifts and what they could provide people. That was just so fascinating to me. And I noticed, and this may be happening for folks who need to step further into health coaching. It's like if you are finding yourself talking maybe almost too much about something where your friends and family don't actually want to hear, they don't want you to help them quite as much as you want to be helping them with this thing.
Oh my gosh.
That can be a sign that you need to start helping other people with this thing.
That is so true, because once again, in the role I play, I hear that all the time that, first of all, I'm kind of already helping people now. And, so this is kind of one of the things when I'll talk to people, like, how do people view you? If someone were to think of you in terms of an expert, what's that for and why and all of that. But also on the flip side of that, it's, how good of a coach am I going to be if I can't even help my friends and family? I hear that sometimes too. So sometimes you've got those that, I don't know if it's luck. I don't know if it's the way they're presenting things, but they've got friends and family that are coming to them. And then this is providing them the confidence to perhaps pursue this. And then you have those that are super passionate about it. Clearly they're pontificating and evangelizing to everyone that they talk to in such a way that people tune them out, and then they get frustrated. Am I even going to be able to affect change because I can't get even those close to me to, listen or what have you? So it could be the approach in which it's taken, right? Those that tend to preach and evangelize versus those that are just living it and offering to help get a different response. But to your point, I think either scenario is probably a good sign, right? If you're talking about it so much, maybe you just need to learn how to do it differently to be impactful. But if your friends and family are done listening to you, that's how I started my blog. Nobody wanted to hear me anymore. So I started just writing about it and sending it out into the universe. But then you also have that other subset that maybe it's the way they're delivering it that's a little bit different. And I think you could use either of those scenarios as an indicator, like, hey, there's something here.
I totally agree with you. I think that we get more masterful at what we want to be doing if we love that thing and we have a positive obsession with that thing. It's like Malcolm Gladwell's research about how it's people who love what they do and are therefore willing to put in all of those hours, those 10,000 hours into it. Those are the people who end up being best at it. I don't think it necessarily has to be a natural talent as much as you're willing to keep going because you have a strong enough interest. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have needed in the beginning, my friends definitely needed to cut me off. I'm like, yeah, that's really great. I'm glad you listened to that podcast. I'm glad you read all those business books. I'd like to, talk about our kids now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The positive obsession. I love that turn of phrase. That's a really good way of describing it. And then the flip side to that is a word that you mentioned again in your origin story, and that's dread. Dread is a really interesting feeling. I've had it. I had it every day in my previous career. Toward the end, at the beginning, it was kind of interesting, and then it became dread. But also, every now and then, I have it when I take on a client that doesn't fit me, and it's like I see my calendar, and it's like, oh. And that just speaks to getting super clear on what you are positively obsessed with. And then I think, into my mind, never really trying not to veer out of that lane. So as a business coach, when you work with folks, do you teach or encourage anything in this realm, like how to get really clear on what you will be positively obsessed with?
Yes. Oh, and I need to say, I got that term positive obsession from the author Octavia Butler. And I find it so inspiring to think about things in this way. So even if you've become a coach, you're on the track that you want to be on, just like you said, you still might find yourself working with a client where you're like, this isn't quite right. This isn't a good fit, or this topic that we're working on doesn't feel like a good fit, or even the method I'm using, maybe the package I've put together doesn't really feel like a good fit. It feels like it's draining me. I think that's an important metric to look at, really brainstorming, what is it that I'm providing and how am I providing it? What part of that may really not be the right fit for me? It might be a good fit for another coach, but it's not a good fit for me. I think this can happen if we see other people who are successful and then we try to model what we're doing exactly off of what they're doing. And we've missed that it is working so well for them because it fits their personality, it fits their strengths.
Oh my
gosh. That was my first foray into group programming. I did it the way I saw somebody else do it, they did a launch. So they launched, they had their 25 people, they took them through, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. And I did it. And I just didn't like it. I didn't like that launch group program form. And that's just my thing. And I'm not coming down to group programming, but I personally do love the one-on-one model. I have a different type of group program now that works better for me, but I exactly mimicked what another successful coach was doing. And I hated every minute of that 12-week group program. I hated it. I think that's important. I think it's important that you shared that.
I'm really curious, Erin, what did you change in the group program you do now that made it feel so different?
For me, what I changed was I wasn't trying to make my group program, how am I trying to say this? Sometimes you get advice from business coaches, and I mean, as a business coach, I'd love to have you speak to this, where they'll say, you have to scale from one-to-one because time, you're trading time for money, which is true. In one-to-one relationship, you have a relationship. That's what I like about it. It's a relationship. And some of the business coaches I've had said, well, just scale that relationship into groups. Now you're going to have relationships with 25 people. And it's like, no, I don't have a relationship with these 25 people. So my group program is low touch, medium touch. It's not low touch, but I was trying to have a high touch relationship oriented group program. And it just felt completely out of integrity for me. I'm not saying other people aren't having success with it, but it's like, listen, if I'm working in a group, it'll be a low price point, low barrier to entry, and also medium to low touch. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And in my program, and I'm not saying this is the right way, I think the way you're doing it is really obviously working for you. In mine, I work with a limited size group and I do one-on-one coaching within it, but I do it asynchronously. So meaning they send me a question. It can be over video or audio or written. And then I give them a private answer within 2 business days. And I do that over video. And to me, and I'm just bringing that up as like, there are so many ways to work within our personalities and our preferences to create the right program for us and for our people. And I used to do it where each person got 2 individual sessions with me, plus there was the group. And I was tired. I was tired. And it felt for me like the wrong fit, and that those one-on-one sessions were sometimes inefficient. Whereas for other coaches, I know a 45-minute one-on-one session or even a longer session can be so perfect and valuable. But for me, I liked to keep things quicker. And so this back and forth over video is such a good fit for me and for my folks. So I love your example and then my example, and looking at how many ways there are to do this and give value.
I think your example is interesting, actually. And that's one way I hadn't considered. So I thank you for just bringing that forward, because that's a neat way of doing a slightly more personalized approach without, ending up on a 5-hour Zoom sesh coaching people one-on-one. Like, I like it. That's good.
Well, and look, there's so much value in, one of the things that we've touched on both on our podcast and in our webinars is being careful about comparing yourself to other people, right? Because that can certainly lead to a lot of anxiety and a lot of insecurity that you are less than somehow, rather than looking at comparison as a form of research.
Yes.
And really thinking through, what might I really be able to take and borrow from this person and this person and this person as a way to just help me take what I'm envisioning and make it a reality, right? So being you and what is true to you, but how can you learn from those that might have come before you in a way to actually execute on what you're envisioning, instead of trying to do something one way for something that, worked with one person, and then what's wrong with me if it doesn't work the way I want it to, or it doesn't feel right to me. So and look, as a therapist, I love your thoughts on, because I'm sure you see it all the time, about this sort of act of comparing myself or your client self to somebody else, and the feelings that might elicit, good or bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell people at the beginning of my program to notice comparison, because it's just going to come up. It's going to come up when you see people within your own niche. It's going to come up even when you see people in other niches, and you just think, you may be right, you may be wrong, but you just think they have it all figured out in their business and they're already doing it perfectly. To just notice that, but not take it very seriously, partly because we actually don't know what's going on for someone else behind the scenes until we really know them. And because just noticing it and not taking it too seriously will give you the opportunity to do what you're talking about, Laura, of, okay, maybe this could be interesting instead of just painful. Maybe there's something here I want to try, and try it, see if it fits for me. And also, if what you're feeling, that maybe that jealousy or that comparison about, is their outcome, what it looks like they've accomplished, then just knowing, okay, good memo to self. I want that. I'm glad I know I want that now. Let me figure out how to get it, whether it's going to be the same route they took or a different route. Now I know that's something I'm going to have.
I came across a gal who seems to do the exact same thing that I do, like almost like weirdly the same. And I went down the rabbit hole of like, I signed up for her webinar. I signed up for her freebie. I wanted to know what she was doing. And she does things differently than I do. And obviously it's very similar, but her execution is different. And I was actually delighted. I was buoyed to see, oh, she does it this way. She does this big group program. She has co-coaches teaching it. She charges this much. I do it this way, and I like the way I do it. And so I'm grateful that I came across this person to see that there's, somebody else in my space doing things differently, and what resonates with her clients might not resonate with mine, and vice versa. So I found the comparison thing to be, it was disempowering at first. I thought, this girl's copying me, which, I mean, she has an enormous following, so probably I'm copying her. I don't know how that works out, but anyway, to then flipping the script on that and feeling like, we are doing similar things, we're doing them in different ways, and it's going to land with different people, and I'm cool with that.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
And in a way, it would be so, I know that capitalism kind of convinces us to think in terms of, we need the whole market share for ourselves or we're in danger, but we're really not with our micro businesses.
Mhm.
And it would be so overwhelming if every single person who needed your solution had to go to you, Erin, and like no one else could help you. Like that would be probably a nightmare.
No doubt. Hey, reframe, right?
Yeah, we talk about, the importance of mindset and growth mindset versus scarcity mindset. We talk about that on our podcast and webinars and in the course, but that's kind of, I think, what you're really touching on. And that all feeds into money mindset.
Yeah.
Right. If we've grown up around this scarcity mindset our whole lives, I know Erin has, I know I have, I think this is just our parents' generation,
Yeah. Scarcity. And with like a big, for me, scarcity with a big garnish of guilt.
Yeah. And look, I see this. I know I have suffered from it. I know Erin has suffered from it. So I know for sure a big chunk of the people listening to this are going to suffer from this sort of a little bit of a scarcity mindset, and a need to get over that, and realizing how that informs your money mindset on your willingness to even go to business for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding the risk there, but also how you run your business, how you price yourself. And I know this is a topic that you address in your business coaching with other therapists and other professionals. Would you mind speaking to that a little bit?
Absolutely. One thing that I find, a place this obviously comes up, is pricing.
Yeah.
So when people are pricing what I help people create is pilot programs. So as they're creating their pilot programs, I do encourage people to hold the pricing process pretty lightly the first time they put something out there. So to not price it so ridiculously low that they're going to resent providing that service, and also to price it someplace where they're going to feel pretty confident that they'll over deliver and that they'll get paid. So that for some people, that really helps to have that set around it, where they'll kind of know their number when they hear that. For other folks, they hear that and they price things at a place where I just think that is way too low.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, luckily then we get to do some coaching about it, and I get them to like double or triple their prices. But what they're thinking is usually, well, it'll be a no-brainer for someone to sign up for this if I price it really low. And I think that is part of a scarcity mindset, thinking that you're imagining your client having a scarcity mindset, and you're imagining them as they're making the decision thinking, what can I afford? Mm-hmm. And I don't think we really want people to sign up for our programs with that as their biggest concern. I think we want them to be signing up with excitement about the outcome that they're going to get, the fit of who they found to help them, and like how the thing that you're saying about your program is just such a great fit for what they're looking for. That's going to be the biggest concern, not, well, this is just so cheap, I can't say no to it. So that's a place where you really can't price things low enough that people are just going to sign up because it's so cheap. So you may as well get yourself paid even as you're creating your pilot program, and let people know, actually, this is valuable.
Yeah.
This is not something to sign up for just because. This is something to sign up for because you're making an investment in yourself.
I absolutely love what you shared. And I want to actually just reflect it back, is this concept that if we decide to price it really low so everybody can afford it, now you've kind of applied a scarcity thinking to your clients.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really interesting way of thinking about it, because we can tell coaches, hey, don't have that scarcity mindset, price accordingly, don't sell yourself short. And they're like, yeah, but I want clients. And it's like, if you have the solution to their problem, understand that your client, the appropriate client, will want to invest in it. And interesting. So let's not apply scarcity thinking to our clients. Like, that's not really even the kind of clients you want to attract.
Right. Like, unless that's your jam and you're like, I just want to work with those people feeling this fear and the scarcity. But that's not true for most of us. That's not usually the specialty. Yeah. I think you're right too about, we want people who really are looking for our solution. And when they see it, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I found her. This is it. And sometimes when someone creates a pilot and they don't hit it out of the park the first time, they may assume that it was because they priced it wrong. And that's really not what it was. It's really about fit. And there's something either in the marketing or in the creation of the program itself that needs some tweaking. It's not because you priced it too high.
I had a little scarcity money mindset breakthrough this week. I'd love to share an anecdote.
Ooh.
So first of all, I have a pilot program and it has a price tag, and the price tag that I've arrived at, it's been the same price, honestly, for like 5 years. And the price tag feels so good to me. And that's the only way I can describe it. This feels like the right price. And a lot of times we've heard people say, if you're closing a lot of people at that price, it's time for you to double your prices. And I close 100% of the people almost virtually who get on a discovery call. So it's like, theoretically, I should double the price, but this price feels super good to me. I love the price of it. Anyhow, I had a discovery call with a client this week, and really early on in the conversation, she made it known she had a lot of weight to lose. This was her main health struggle, and that's something that I can help people with. And I said, so what other things have you tried before? And she had explained that she had tried a lot of clinics and things that were free, because we live in Canada, so there's some free stuff you can get. She went through all the sort of Health Canada channels, working with dietitians, weight loss clinics, doctor supervised things like this that were free. And so right out the bat, I'm hearing free, and I know that she can't afford it. And so I kind of turned the conversation around, and this is a discovery call. Like, I don't really know her. I'm getting to know her. And I said, it sounds to me like investment is going to be a struggle for you. So I want to let you know right now that the price of my program is this, and that feasibly is something that you can't afford right now. And she said, yeah, I can't afford it. I said, no problem. I'm going to give you just a few other resources to check out, because I really hear that you need some help. So I spent the time on the phone with her, the full 30 minutes that we had booked. I didn't just blow her off and say, you can't afford it, I'm out. I had a nice conversation with her about some more avenues she could check out, knowing full well that she couldn't afford it, but also not feeling like I needed to drop down and meet her where she was at. Like, it's like, this sounds mean, but I don't need this client. The price tag is this. This is not in this client's, available price range. So that's okay. We're not going to work together. We're just not going to. And that's okay. And I really enjoyed this conversation, even though I didn't get a client out of it, because I don't know, there's something really empowering about standing in my price tag. Like, this is the price of my thing.
Yep.
And I think maybe Erin of 7 years ago would have said, well, how much can you afford? Okay, I can give you a payment plan and maybe we can work it out. And I just don't do that anymore, even for really nice people like this gal I spoke to.
You really highlighted something that I think comes up particularly for health coaches in particular, is that we are oftentimes in the realm of, do you take insurance? I get a lot of private messages. Hey, do you take Blue Cross Blue Shield? I'm like, no, I am not a doctor. I'm not a clinical practitioner. I'm not, this is what I offer. So in the realm that we're in, this is a kind of a weird conversation. Not weird, but it's a conversation that comes up often enough. And I think it's also part of what goes into how people price themselves, because they think they're competing with services that people can get covered by insurance. And I guess I would love a little bit of a pep talk from you on how to think through this from a mindset point of view, particularly a money mindset point of view. But coaching is not reimbursable. Period. There is no competition in the insurance space for coaching. And if you're hanging your shingle on the fact that you give out macros and meal plans, you're right. Someone can get that for free. I'm saying in air quotes, through insurance or whatever, if that's all you offer. But if you are a great coach, there is no replacement for that. Period.
So I like that pep talk. That's awesome. Absolutely. And yeah, I think a lot of professionals, including people who have been psychotherapists and are heading into coaching, there are a lot of people who struggle with this insurance piece. And really, one thing I have is anecdotal evidence that just in helping hundreds of people through a process of creating their unique programs, I don't think you're really competing with insurance anymore. I think it's a completely different question for folks. I get questions all the time of like, who do you know who could help me with such and such? And if I have the right person to recommend to them, that's all they need to hear. Like they're not really looking for, how can I get this paid for? And I mean, I know it's a complex issue. And on the side of wanting to help people and wanting to refer people who can't afford our services, I love what you were talking about, Erin, in terms of having some free resources available, whether they're yours or someone else's, being able to direct someone there. And I think that's a really loving solution, is to know, well, this is what I offer. And if it's not for you, like, no problem.
I think there is a point we need to acknowledge, which is that there are coaches who are intentionally specializing in sort of lower socioeconomic statuses. We have some coaches that went through our advanced coaching course that are really moved by like these food deserts and food availability and wanting to go into communities where there's just under-resourced communities. And so with that community in mind as well, we don't want to talk, big bucks all the way, because some coaches are working with folks with lower incomes. But I think what the message is that whatever somebody can invest in time, folks are there, the tide is turning. I think I feel this, I see this investment in time or money or whatever it is, energy, our clients who are paying clients, because that's just, we're health coaches, it's not going to be reimbursed. They're paying clients, they're opening their wallets, but the appetite for that in all different types of socioeconomic statuses is starting to broaden. So it's a good pep talk. I think you guys both nailed that pep talk. I feel good about it.
I have one more peppy thing to say about this, is that I think sometimes if you have a really successful business where you're bringing in some overflow and you're making a really good income and you're not overworking, that also puts you in a position where you may be creating free stuff that's building your audience and serving people. I love referring people like to my podcast and saying, if someone wants a part of my brain, a part of my help, and my programs aren't affordable for them, they often can come to a lot of free trainings that I do. They can listen to my podcast. They can get some of the best of my help without paying for it. And so that's kind of a beautiful side effect. And I know the two of you are doing that with this podcast. So it's nuanced, it's complicated, but there are ways to serve people while having a really simple business that pays the bills and then some.
Yeah. We've seen people that have been extremely successful that can kind of serve that other population through a free Facebook group that they build into their business. I'm going to spend X amount of time in this group answering questions where people have access, or they do Facebook lives in that group, or they'll tap either paid or unpaid, because there are a lot of people that just love this stuff and they can act as like an admin for your little Facebook group because they're well educated and they can kind of bring these people along. We've seen people that kind of do it that way, to be able to provide support in that Facebook group, or downloadable resources and things that you can use. So there's ways that you can sort of, just by the virtue of your own success, be of service to other people, whether they can pay you or not. And all the more reason to focus on you just being a great coach and being successful and being able to do that. And then there are others, and I've done this, and I still do this, where I have my one-on-one coaching program, but I added like just a course that was much less expensive that people could opt into. Sorry, my phone rang there. That people could opt into at a much lower price. Now they at least have some information. Yeah. And what I've often said, and we bring this up with our coaches, is if somebody then, let's say they purchase my course and they have some questions. I have never once charged people for asking me a question, nor do I charge them for the answer. Sorry, I don't, right? It's if you want to actually have a relationship with me, to what Erin is saying, right? And that's where really what we're being paid for is time. It's really the one thing we have of value. Knowledge, absolutely. Education, experience, all of that. But the one thing that's people can't really get on their own is my time. And that ability to partner with somebody to finally be successful. So I think I'm hoping that this conversation has created a little bit of an aha moment for folks that are wrestling with this, that they're, you can come to some sort of a solution within your own mind that you can feel good about being able to kind of pay it forward.
Yeah. And another thing about that is like to not confuse a couple of different things that I think need to be separated. Sometimes people put these things together. Like folks who I want to serve won't be able to afford me is one concern. Like I want to find a way to serve those folks. So that, like we've talked about some solutions to that can be amazing. And then the other question I think is no one will want to pay for this. Mm-hmm. And if we mix those two things up, we're kind of not looking at both of them creatively. Mm. And so if someone's walking around listening to this and thinking like, but no one's going to want to pay enough for this, that's not true. And if it is true, it's just because you haven't found your really great match between who you're serving and what you want to offer. But the solution is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One way to think through this, and I think we have this Venn diagram around somewhere, Erin, where it's, you've got these 4 circles that kind of overlap, and one where it says kind of, hey, what you're passionate about, what you're actually good at doing versus what the world needs. But the last circle is what you can be paid for, what people will pay for. And what is that spot in the middle where all 4 of those circles can join? That's what you need to focus on, right? And kind of move forward. So I would love your take on this. So, okay, let's say this is what I've designed. Will somebody pay for that? How would you advise that client or coach that business owner through thinking through that and getting over that?
Yes. I love that Venn diagram so much. So I always help people start with the who, like where, because, I work with people who are so creative. They've got these ideas of this is the program I want to create. It's going to be so great. And it's going to take people through this empowering process. It's going to be amazing. And it's going to have rituals and just all kinds of beautiful things. And that can work. But first we have to really get clear on the who is it for? And there have to be people, and I don't say this to be like a dream killer or a buzz killer. Trust me, we can totally figure it out. But you have to have people who are walking around looking for a solution to a problem that you help solve. Exactly. And they're already looking for the solution. You don't have to convince them that they need this thing. You don't have to convince them they have this problem. They are walking around. They're already trying to find people to pay for this. Right. And that is the way to build a business. If you're trying to build a business where you have to convince people, no, really, this is going to be so empowering for you. This is going to be so helpful to you. You're just going to be working so hard and just kind of clawing your way to a business. Whereas if you find a way to pick, like you said, with that Venn diagram, pick something that people are already walking around searching for, and then put your unique spin on it, where this is the way I help people and it brings my magic into it, then that's a really easy business to build.
Mm-hmm. So to go a little deeper into that, let's say, and we're talking health coaches here, so we're going to use a health coaching example.
Yeah.
I want to help people lose weight or feel better. If I'm your business coaching client, are you going to let me get away with that, or are we going to go deeper?
No, we need to identify, like I ask people to identify 3 to 5 actual humans who you can have a conversation with, and you can ask them, what is the problem that you are struggling with? What have you already tried to solve it? So if you're talking to somebody and they say, this is the problem I'm trying to solve, and then you ask them, what have you already tried to solve it? And they say, nothing, it just would be nice to solve it. That's not it. Yeah. You've got to find like 3 to 5 people who are looking for a solution to this problem, and then find out in their words, how are they talking about it? And from there, you're going to actually put everything into their words instead of what it is that you would like for them. And so if we're dealing with real humans instead of avatars who we've made up, that kind of gets us out of that vagueness of, I just help this huge group of people work through a general problem. That's going to be, now you're competing with Oprah, like you're competing with the whole world. So you want to pick something that you're uniquely able to help solve. And that can take some work. Like the niching part is, for some folks, the most painful part, because they're thinking, all right, if I'm picking just this one very particular niche within a niche, then I'm abandoning everybody else, or I'm going to feel so pigeonholed, or I'm going to feel like I can't help just the thousands of people who I could be helping. But we just know through all of our experiences that actually you're going to build your business a lot faster. And the people within that micro niche are going to find you a lot faster than if you're trying to speak to all of the people who Oprah's already talking to.
First of all, so many things that you said, I just was like having little light bulb moments. This need to find all the clients, to me, is, I get it, but you just need to find one. Like start with one.
Start with one.
One is a good place to start. Don't worry about the thousands that you're not helping. Find one that you can help. That's just a really great place to start.
Yeah.
Your exercise that you suggest, which is ask 3 to 5 people what, in their own words, they're struggling with and what they've tried and not succeeded feasibly to solve it, is the way you described it was, instead of inventing this avatar, which truly is kind of what we're told to do. Like, who is this person? Give them a name. What kind of car do they drive? It's like, oh, it's Heather. She drives a RAV4. I don't know. Like, I'm making up this person. But you could just ask people. So we did a few years ago, and hopefully we can do this again. Laura and I hosted a mastermind session where some people came to our weekend and hung with us. And this was one of the exercises that I suggested, was reach out and ask people. And the pushback I got was, but I don't have an audience. So how do you solve for that?
Yeah. So usually when people get started with me, they don't have an audience. They may have like 70 people who are mostly their friends and family on an email list or something, but usually they don't have an audience yet. And so I ask them to think of people who they've known in some way or another. Maybe if they're already doing one-on-one work, maybe these are some past clients. And if it's not appropriate to contact the person and say, like, let me pick your brain, you can just go on your memory. You're probably a really caring, empathetic person. So you can go on your memory of what was it that they would have said about their problem and what they were trying to solve. And then you can ask, maybe you can only figure out one person who you've known who has the specific problem that you'd like to create a program around. But now you can think of that as kind of an experiment. I'm going to run an experiment and see if there are enough people with this really specific problem to fill a program, to build a business around. So then you can go to everyone you know and say, this is who I'm trying to help. Do you know anybody who would have a chat with me? And usually you can. And if you can't, that may be a sign that you need to keep looking for a different niche.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
as long as you know some people, you're good to get into those conversations.
Yeah, very true.
No, I mean, I know a lot of people start their own. I mean, I've done this, start just a free Facebook group of folks that are drawn to you anyway, because they're friends with you on Facebook or whatever. And like, I did this at the start of COVID, all this nonsense, start a little private group, and when I went out and said, hey, this is something that I'm working on now that I moved, I'm rebranding everything, who would be interested, and people, they just all respond. If you just ask a question, even if it's just a small group, I would imagine that typically speaking, your avatar client is going to be someone that you know well, because they're kind of like you, right? And in general, many times people that are kind of like us are drawn to us. So whether it's somebody that you know very tightly that you feel comfortable asking, I would agree with you. If you just ask your group of friends, this is what I'm looking to build. And is there anyone of your acquaintance that you think fits that bill that might just be willing to ask a couple of questions? I could really use some help. I would imagine you'd get some people that respond and say, sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, just there's so much power in just asking for help. I think we have
absolutely.
like people, like as humans, have an innate nature to be like, yeah, it goes a long way.
Sometimes it's weird. Sometimes in building our businesses, we sort of lose that common sense. We lose that ability to just ask for help and have conversations. And I think we want to build that into the DNA of our business. Like, this is a business that is collaborative, where I ask for help, where I'm constantly in conversation with people about the work I'm doing. And I think we get this feeling in business, unlike in anything else, where we feel like I have to look like I know what I'm doing at all times. So I better not ask for help. And it's really the opposite. People like to help us.
And by the way, when I get asked questions on the phone from folks that are, again, curious about health coaching and, hey, do I want to head in this direction? One of the top questions I get are, which people are the most successful? First of all, what percentage of people tend to be successful? And those that are, what makes them the most successful? Is it their background? I'm like, you know what? The people that are the most successful are the people that actually do things that are productive. And the most productive thing that you can do in our world is to talk to people. You have to get out and talk to people. You can be busy doing a bunch of stuff that isn't productive or revenue producing and get nowhere very fast, even though you were working really hard. At the end of the day, you need to be willing to talk to people. And if in the beginning you don't have the confidence to try to present yourself, what a great way to talk to people, by asking questions, asking for help, and then guess what? Offering to help. That's where that kind of makes a transition. I think it's a very natural transition to start out kind of asking for help in this realm, because this is what I'm trying to do. And once I get up and running, guess what? I'll be in a position to help you. And I think that tends to go over really well. At least it has for me in the past. But to your point, this, like, I need to come across as an expert and tremendously successful from day one, even though I've never started anything. It's illogical when it's said out loud like that,
Yeah.
But everybody feels that way. Why is that?
Yeah. Why is that? Why do we feel like I should look like I already know what I'm doing in this area? I think it has something to do with people won't trust me if they see that I don't know everything. And then I think we're really wrong about that. I think people trust us more when we're open about, we're awesome at the thing we're awesome at. There's no question about that, but we don't need to know everything. That's not what people are looking for.
Yeah. I think that speaks to imposter syndrome, which is a huge factor. I know that's something that you help people work with, but I actually want to pivot to something else that I'm super curious about.
Yeah.
On your website, one of your bullet points that you help people with, or things that are getting in the way of folks creating their business, is blandness. Okay. I just find this, maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, so I want to dive into it a little bit, because I had recently come across a woman named Sally Hogshead. I don't know if that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fascinating
Fascinating. Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Her thing is that you need to be fascinating. If you want to have an audience or something that people want to connect with, you need to be fascinating. Which sounds like a tall order. Like
Yeah, it's a
just
little
be
pressure.
fascinating. Yeah, like, so is that kind of what you're speaking to in a sense when you kind of are referring to this blandness getting in the way of someone's success?
Yeah, I think that it's about trying to appeal to everybody does tend to make us come across pretty bland, and being willing to lean into our particular strengths will naturally make some people really walk away. And that's okay, because it's going to draw other people in more. So if you talk about, there's no one right way to do this, but if you're someone who really cares about politics and you go ahead and talk about politics, yeah, you're going to turn some people off, but you're going to also draw some people who feel like, okay, this is who I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so being willing to do that, and also being willing to look at, so I did Sally Hoghead's assessment, and I came across as the secret weapon. And what I found really useful in that was looking at, okay, so some things about me that I have thought of as like not so great, like being an introvert, being someone who really likes to analyze things. Like maybe those aren't always the most appealing traits to everybody, but then leaning all the way into them and saying, okay, I'm going to follow my positive obsession. I'm going to analyze the heck out of your business, and I'm going to, provide this really geeky business coaching to you, rather than trying to have a personality that I don't have. Like that, I don't know if it makes me fascinating, but it certainly makes me less bland. And it allows the people who feel like, yep, she's who I'm looking for. It allows them to see me, and it allows the people who are looking for something else not to be confused about it.
Right. Yeah, I love that too. Like if you put out your messaging or your vibe or whatever, your energy, some people aren't going to like it and they're going to leave. And it's like, good, it's fine. They weren't going to probably work with you anyway. Or if they were, it wasn't going to be a very enjoyable experience for either of you.
Yeah.
It's nice to sort of, if anything, it's a self-editing tool for your audience. So the people who are with you just really like you. And then this idea of I think it can be a little difficult for folks. Laura name dropped this sort of macros and meal plans thing that I do think a lot of health and nutrition coaches think that's what they're supposed to do. So they do it, and it's like, yeah, but everybody's doing it. Like what part, like, and fair enough if you want to do it, but how are you going to do it in a way or with a voice or with an approach that is at least interesting to the point where you're going to alienate some people and you're going to really call in some other people. I don't know, but personally, I'm not fascinating by any stretch either, but it's so fun to just go into market in my email list or on my Instagram or whatever, just being who I am. And it's like, some people are going to be really annoyed by yet another video of my dog or my horses or but I don't care, because those people can leave.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, and don't you think the more people have the more confident people feel that they understand who you are and what they're going to get by working with you, the much more likely they are to actually do it. Because to your point, Erin, there are some folks that just happen to catch you on the right day, or they're just, I don't know what it is about the connections they make that are like immediately within a couple of experiences of seeing you, hearing from you, what have you. That's who I want to work with. And then there's others that will just totally stalk either your page or what you send out for like a year or more before they finally are like, okay, now I feel comfortable. So I'd love your opinion as a business coach. Is it just that those people need more time? Are they just not buyers yet when they first came across you and they needed to kind of be in the right place? Combination of both? Because that has happened to both, I'm sure both Erin and I, that some people in instant connection, I don't know, maybe it's like they're taxis. Their light was on and I just happened to catch them at the right time. Or it's, I'm curious, from a stages of change concept. They kind of weren't ready yet, but they found it interesting, kind of resonated. And then at some point, something happened where they were finally ready and they knew where I was, where to reach me, and boom.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your opinion there?
So the way I think about it is I love those people who are just there for years. And some of them end up like after sometimes like 5 years or whatever, end up saying, yes, let's do this. But I try not to focus on them in any of my marketing. I'm happy that they're there. And I like that I get to like help hundreds of people who I'll never end up working with. Like that's great too. But in terms of who I'm talking to in any email or in any webinar or podcast episode, I really want to talk to the people who are already walking around looking for a solution that I can help with.
Right.
And that makes my job a lot easier. And I used to focus a lot more on the folks who what more nurturing do they need from me? Like, what is it that I haven't said that could help them? And I don't want to put any pressure on them to make a decision, or all of this kind of thinking, I think gets in the way of really calling out to those people who, as soon as they find us, they sign up like the next day. And often I would be really surprised by that, especially when I started selling things that were more expensive. I would be really surprised when I went and looked, someone would sign up for something, maybe drop like a few $1,000s on something that was really important to them. And then I would go and look in my email service and see, well, how long have they been following me? They weren't following me. Like they just found me and signed up. And that was happening over and over again and making me realize, oh, this can be a thing where we're nurturing people for years, and that's great. But it can also be a thing where our messaging is really clear. We've got a great match between who this is for and what it is. And they don't necessarily need to spend much time with us to know this is the right fit.
Cool.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
it did. But I guess my follow-up question to that then is from okay, so your business coach hat is on, and and you're working with a client, and you are analyzing the heck out of their business, maybe in their marketing.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things you notice that are going to tell you, all right, this is going to make this a much longer sale from a communications and messaging standpoint? This is how we can speak better to those who are ready now.
Oh, good. I would have them look at, I have people do something called a right fit client exercise, where they're writing in depth about one of those 3 to 5 people who are really looking for this solution. And I look at their sales page, like everything, but especially their sales page for their offer. And I see, are you speaking directly to that person in the moment when they are looking and ready to make an investment in themselves? And if you're not, if you're being a little bit vaguer and you're kind of trying to speak to everyone who at some point might want this service, then you may be slowing down the process.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. We spoke with another business coach a few weeks ago who was talking about, she was talking about sales pages. But the way you just articulated that's so interesting, because when we set out to build our sales page, we're like, information dump.
Right.
Here's what you're going to get. But that's not going to necessarily trigger that emotional reaction that a person in the moment of seeking change is like, take my money here. Where do I sign up, kind of thing. So the sales page needs to be written, what you're saying, in a voice and a language, using language that resonates with the person who is dying to make a change right now.
Yeah. I encourage people to do, we write fairly simple sales pages. We could get more tactical. We could push on more copy levers and that kind of thing. But what I do encourage people to focus on is really speaking directly to that person, their problem that they're facing right now, and the realistic hope that they have that if they're the right person for this, the transformation, that they can walk through, and getting that very accurate and in a really conversational tone where you're talking the way you would actually talk to a person instead of trying to impress your colleagues or trying to sound really smart, just like you are smart. So just talk the way you would talk to the person on the phone. And then actually that information stuff you were talking about, that big information dump, I really encourage that too, because people have questions about what's in this program. Like, how does it work? How many calls? What are the dates? Like all of that stuff. And what exactly are you going to teach me? So I really like people including both of those things.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I think the other coach we spoke to suggested like opening up your video, it's not video, your voice memos app and just explaining the program or whatever as though you were telling it to somebody who was really interested. And then sort of transcribing that in a manner speaking to your sales page, which is an exercise that I keep meaning to do and keep forgetting.
I think that's smart. And I don't even do sales calls. So I need to do that on my sales page. I need to answer all the questions that someone would have. I go back and forth over video messaging with people, but I don't even do sales calls where I would walk them through the conversation. So the sales page kind of needs to be that.
Okay. So when you take on clients, they're getting everything they need from the sales page, and then you're not doing any kind of discovery. They're either signing up with you or they're not. But if they have questions, they send them through to you and you video chat the answers back. And that's how you do your enrollments?
Yeah. And people are usually surprised when they email me and then they get a video back from me saying like, oh, this is a really good question. Here's how I would think about it in your particular situation. And so even though I don't do sales calls, people are often like, wow, you really are talking to me. And I'm like, of course I'm talking to you. Yeah.
So do you mind filling us in on your program a little bit about how people work with you? Do you have like, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Just tell us a little bit about your program and how you run it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called Create Your Program. Really not a fancy title there, really just describes what it is. So people come into Create Your Program. We work together over 5 weeks. And so they come in with, usually they've been doing some kind of one-on-one work, and it's very tailored to whoever they're working with in that moment. And usually they're doing something very kind of open-ended with folks. And this is the program they're going to create over 5 weeks is going to be something much more repeatable. And it can still be one-on-one, or it can be small group. Some people create retreats, they create workshops, online courses, group programs, individual programs. So we walk through who this is for. So this is where they have to make a really tough decision in the first week of the program. And I give them filters of how to decide, how to also hold that decision lightly so that they realize they're not getting married. They're making a decision that's reversible. They're going to run an experiment with it. And then we decide, well, what's the best for that group of people and the solution you want to give them? What's the best format for you? And so that's week 2. We look at the pros and cons of every different format under the sun. And then we pick for each person, they pick a simple pilot program that they can deliver live quickly and that has the ability to then scale over time. And scaling doesn't even necessarily mean that it has to become a group program. It could still be one-on-one, but it's something that they can easily iterate over and over again. Mm-hmm. Then we spend a week on marketing and creating a plan so that they can grow their audience. Because even if they can fill a pilot program by just reaching out to their community and letting people know this is an awesome thing and this is exactly who it's for, you can't fill all the future iterations just through the people you know. So we come up with an audience building plan based on people's strengths and personalities. And then in our final week together, we spend a half day together where they actually launch their programs and they let everybody know, this is what I created, this is why. And we just did this yesterday. I just finished up a program yesterday. And people write this email during our time together. They write an email to their community announcing their work. And then they press send and get really sweaty and then celebrate. And so over the 4 weeks, we are 5 weeks, we have 4 1-hour calls, and then we have that final 4-hour call. We also have an attorney come in for a Q&A because everybody has legal questions about their businesses. And we have that asynchronous one-on-one coaching. So some people really lean into that and ask me questions every day, have me look at their work. Some people sit back a little more and just join the group calls. It's really fine either way. And they also get to bond with each other during the process. So the reason I only do this in a group is because for my particular solution that I'm offering, I find that people work better by being inspired by each other, and sometimes even maybe a little bit of healthy competition, of not competition like I'm going to take you down, but competition like, well, if she's doing that and she's moving forward, like I want to do that too. So that's the 5-week process, and it's intense, and people tend to get a lot done.
Awesome.
Do you run this? Do you run groups and cohorts then? Everybody kind of starts at the same time and complete. So, and in 5 weeks, getting,
that's a lot.
Yeah. You get a lot done in a short period of time. That's awesome.
Yeah. I was just telling them yesterday, okay, so you did this. Don't worry. Like, you don't have to keep going at this pace. Don't stop, but you don't have to keep going at this pace, but it's enough time to get that stuff done. And I found that it's not enough time for people to get lost or allow life to get in the way or procrastinate, because they're always in motion over those 5 weeks.
Amazing. Yeah. It sounds super productive. And it's like all of that sort of like really right out the gate stuff that is super easy to procrastinate on or get lost on. So I think that sounds like an awesome jumpstart for, well, anyone at any stage, honestly. You don't have to be.
That was going to be my next question. Like at what stage of their business do you find people are like the right fit for you? But to Erin's point, it kind of sounds like it could be appropriate from any stage, just depending on. Yeah. I mean, what do you find? Is there?
I find it's about an internal readiness of, I'm ready to make some decisions. So some people need some time to do that less structured one-on-one work to get their feet wet, to get a sense of how they like working, maybe have their crying in the fetal position moment and figure out like, oh, this isn't what I want something else. Some people step in pretty quickly knowing, actually, I want to create a program that I can iterate. I've got some ideas. I have no idea where to start. And both of those sorts of people can do really well. So it's a feeling of ready enough, but not waiting until, because sometimes I get people asking me like, how do I know if I'm ready? And then as they're giving me their situation, I'm like, you should have done this 3 years ago. You're waiting for the perfect moment. And there's no perfect moment. It's time to just start.
Yeah. Yeah. Love this. And I just want to kind of hone in on one phrase that you keep using, which is a program that you can iterate. And so this to me is super important, because this is what I honestly have built. My program is my program. It's delivered the same way. And I do it in a one-on-one fashion, but it's delivered the same way to every client. Yes. Every client is a completely unique snowflake, but the program is the same. Yes. And so what's really cool about it is it's scalable in the sense that it takes me no time at all. Every client is about 5.5 hours of work from start to finish. And I have that sorted out. So a program that you can iterate isn't just an online group program. It's not just an online course, but it's something that has predictability, a format, a structure. It's so easy. It makes everything so easy. Like yes. I can onboard a client in 5 minutes into my program. If they say yes, I'm like, here's the intake form. Now you're enrolled. We're going to get started tomorrow. And it's no work. And whenever we get questions, whenever I get questions like, what should I charge? What should I do? How should I do this? I always say, build a program and give it a price tag. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you're saying. And I hope that's resonating with people listening. Like there's something to be said about this really flexible, personalized, on the, ad hoc thing. But that sounds hard to me.
Me too.
Way easier.
Yeah. And if that really flexible, like it could be different every time. It depends on your goals. Like I'll talk to you to figure out what you need, and then we'll create something together. If that's working for someone, like I'm not trying to talk anybody out of working that way. I just know it didn't work for me. And I know it exhausts a lot of people. So if you're sitting there thinking like that isn't working for me, I'm getting tired too, and I'm not making enough money. Yeah, like you're totally speaking my language. And as you talk about your program, Erin, it also, you didn't even say this, but it makes me like, it's clear that you know how to deliver value and that your work is excellent because you're not even distracted by the like, how are we going to do it this time? What's going to be the process? Like, you're just like, yeah, I know the process. Let's get to work. Let's not mess around.
Right. And the other beautiful thing, and you kind of touched on this, is okay, so this is my one-on-one program. Guess what else? It's also a self-guided online course, which took me no time because I already built it. And then you even dropped this, you mentioned the R word, retreat, which is something I would love to do. Who knows if that's going to be a thing that we can even do. But like, I've got this property and it's really pretty.
And you were just talking about horses.
The whole nine, right? I can conceive how I can take my 8-week program and squeeze it into a 4-day weekend. Like, it's not even that much of a leap, right? So the benefit of building a thing that's tangible, a tangible thing that has a price tag.
Yes.
Guys, it takes so much of the work out of all this stuff. So much of the mental energy that we spend.
Yeah.
It mellows it right out. Can't recommend it enough.
Oh, absolutely.
And
that's really interesting.
To your point, Erin, it's been done so many times at this point. You have so much confidence in it that I heard you say literally, it's like, great, we're done. We can start tomorrow, right? Yep. None of this, we got to get prepared. No, you can start tomorrow. We can start now because it's deliverable. It's the same but to your point, every client brings something new to the table. So your conversations, I'm sure, within that program are different from client to client as it relates to their circumstances. But the program itself is the same.
Yeah. And now Laura and I are just talking to each other. Sorry, Annie.
I love that. I mean, this is like one of my favorite things about your podcast is like, I was telling you before we hit record, you two make it so easy for the guest because you're already so interesting on your own. So, yeah, please keep going.
Well, so we teach this advanced coaching course, and it is teaching the art and science of the coaching relationship and motivational interviewing and all this coaching conversation stuff. That still happens when you have an iterative program. Yes, like I'm not saying every single client gets some blanket coaching conversation because I'm on the phone with these guys once a week for half an hour. But the client shows up with the uniqueness of their lived experience and their food preferences and what happened in their life that week. And that's all I have to answer to. I don't have to now, I'm not going in to teach them something. Like literally I'm on the phone with this unique individual talking about them because I don't have to talk about my program because that's kind of behind the scenes. So it becomes client-centered more so because it's not about me and what I'm creating, what I'm doing. That part's done. Let's talk about you. So honestly, yeah.
I love that. You're not distracted by, okay, what are we going to create for you to meet your particular needs? Like you're in the driver's seat. And so then you can just focus 100% on them. And that's so comforting. Like when I go to a yoga class, which that's been a long time, but if I go to a yoga class, I don't want to go in and have them say, like, well, I don't know. What do you guys want to do? Like, there's a lot of things we could do. Like, let's hear from everybody. No, like, show me what to do.
They're coming to you for some structure.
Yeah.
So this is funny. And then I promise we'll let you go because we're running real long. But, one of the, I guess, criticisms that sometimes comes with coaching, and because I've heard this from other people that have been coached, health coaching, is that my experience with my last coach was that all they kept doing was asking me questions. I would ask them a question and they would just continue to ask me questions and they never once answered I think what they're communicating is there was no structure at all deliver, and so there is that, coaching is not about being the expert. Coaching is not about answering the questions. This is where, to Erin's point, her program kind of does all that. It answers probably a lot of those questions because she's done this long enough that she already knows what questions they're going to ask, because they all have the same questions. They all have the same concerns because she's got a niche client that has a problem that she knows how to solve. Right. And then those coaching relationships, those coaching calls, I'm totally speaking for you, Erin. You tell me if I'm wrong, but you can answer the questions that have come up based on all of this other stuff pretty quickly and easily, but also from the mindset of how are you going to use this information?
Yeah.
Right. Putting it back onto the client about now, how are you going to actually use this to sort of benefit yourself? So health coaching in particular needs to be more than about just asking questions and just reflecting. At some point, you need to be a resource for people. And the benefit of building a program with that material embedded in it is that it's there.
I love that. And if someone gets the sense from the program, oh, you've already answered all my basic questions.
Right.
Oh, now we get to work.
Exactly. That's where it becomes client-centered. Instead of saying, is almond milk okay? It's like, we don't talk about that. You already know the answer to that question. Let's talk about, I'm going to my mother-in-law's this weekend and she always force feeds me pecan pie and I don't know how to navigate this relationship without pissing off my mother-in-law. Like, that's what we're going to talk about. It becomes client-centered because you've built everything out. All the informational pieces and the guidance and everything is built. And now it gets to become very client-centered. And you get into the granular details of what the client needs to put this stuff into their life. And to me, that's the benefit of the coaching relationship. So,
yeah.
Yes.
So the big takeaway is just get out there and build your program. And that's what it sounds to me like what you do. You got to build your program. And that's kind of what you help people do in your business.
100%. And to not hide in perfectionism. Perfectionism doesn't actually lead to excellence. It just leads to waiting. So to step forward, start taking action, take informed action. Don't just throw something out there, go through a process, but do it quickly. Like, don't wait for it to be perfect.
Yes. Boom.
Great stuff.
Drop. Don't wait for it to be perfect. You're absolutely right. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. We could just gab for hours, but we'll totally lose our audience. Before we lose them, would you please tell people where they can find you? Because I have to imagine a lot of what you've had to say and how just hearing how Erin and I have responded to what you have to say as people that have coached for a long time, the value of what you're saying here, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of people that want to know more. So where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at rebeltherapist.me and you'll see my program, Create Your Program there. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to create something repeatable, something I can iterate, something I can make excellent, and I just don't really know how to do that or how to start, please check out Create Your Program and I would love to help you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie. This was a complete blast.
This was so fun. I'm really, really honored to be here. So thank you so much.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.
Well, if you've been listening at Health Coach Radio, you'll know that we're all about raising the voices of practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches, but most importantly, helping to further legitimize this exploding industry. Erin and I have disclosed often that we're on the faculty of the Primal Health Coach Institute, founded by none other than the health and wellness legend, Mark Sisson. And we've interviewed dozens of guests from just about every different health coaching program you can think of, and who practice in just about any conceivable way you can think of. But our allegiance is to the health coaching industry in its totality, first and foremost. It's our desire to continuously and unapologetically lift and promote this industry that nudged us to create this podcast for you in the first place. It's this same yearning that encouraged us to take the educational offering at our health coaching school to the next level. We are so proud to offer the Primal Health Coach Level 2 certification course, which, when combined with our primary course, the Primal Health Coach certification course, not only satisfies the educational requirements to sit for the board exam, but is specifically designed to teach advanced coaching mastery. You will work closely with a small class of peers through this 12-week, very intensive, live online classroom experience to learn how to execute a coaching relationship that is truly transformational. You'll learn and practice how to ask powerful questions, what it means to hold space for your clients, but most importantly, how to actually do it. You'll learn about the craft of motivational interviewing and the nuances of habit change, goal setting, and accountability, and how to nurture your client's own inner knowing, their intuition, and their own self-efficacy, so that they will graduate from your care a truly transformed person. You want a big, successful, powerful coaching practice. And maybe you're devouring our episodes looking for the silver bullet that's going to launch your business into the upper echelons. We've said it a million times and we'll say it again. Your coaching skills are what will make or break you and set you apart for success in this field. So if you're looking to level up your coaching skills and maybe dial up your credential and become a board-eligible health coach, look no further. You can learn more about PHCI's Level 2 program at primalhealthcoach.com/level 2. But if you would value talking to a real person about your path to being a masterful coach and perhaps a board certified coach, book some time with me personally. You can access my calendar at primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or just call me. You can reach me at 844-307-7662. Thank you for listening to Health Coach Radio, and I hope I get to talk to you soon.